if you are a team lead, if you're a manager, if you're a leader, if like whatever position you have, if you have someone who is reporting to you, you impact their life potentially as much or more than their spouse does. Like how you show up matters in such a significant way. And it's not like, yes, there are KPIs and like performance metrics and all the things that we have to do. And like the quality of your being is what leaders should be focusing on the most. And one of them is feeling out of alignment with your values. And when you look at the key causes of burnout, all of them are very systemic. They're really like deeper workplace cultural issues rather than like this quick fix. Like you need to just like take another day off or get a spa day. Being out of alignment with your values, like that is not gonna, that's not gonna be fixed by going to the spa.
Hey, welcome to The Freedom Experience. I'm your host, John Moncrief, and my guest today is Meghan French Dunbar. She's an entrepreneur, a writer, a speaker, and the author of This Isn't Working, her most recent book. And honestly, it was the cover that grabbed my attention of the book. Basically, This Isn't Working, how working women can overcome stress, guilt, and overload to find true success. So as someone who works alongside some incredible women, my partner, my daughter, my team, I saw the title and I thought to myself, I need to read this book. I need to get a woman's perspective, and I wanted to understand more about what's really going on in women's lives in the workplace today. So picked up the book, read the book. It's a great book, thoughtful, honest, and a bit of a gut punch. But Meghan goes way beyond women in the workplace. And in this interview, she told me that the book wasn't originally intended to just sort of focus on women. Her publisher pushed her in that direction, but it's about the way we all work and how toxic the modern workplace culture can be for so many of us. It peels back the layer on a system that's been burning people out, undermining values, and yes, still, even in 2025, making it harder for women to lead. But it's not all doom and gloom. Meghan has spent years studying what actually works, what real leaders are doing to build workplaces where people thrive, where mental health is protected, and where success doesn't cost you your soul. So, in this conversation, we talk about how to get unstuck in a system that values productivity over people, and how we start changing that. We talk about why burnout isn't a personal failure. It's more, it's a system problem rooted in misaligned values, and your values have to align with the company that you're working with, and why if those values aren't aligned, it's one of the big factors that contribute to burnout. And then we talk about how all of us, leaders, employees, parents, and partners, have agency to model something better right now. So whether you're running a business, raising kids, or you're just trying to hold it all together, this one's for you. Let's get into it with Meghan. All right, Meghan, welcome to the show. Thank you so much for taking the time and coming on with us today.
I am stoked to be here and stoked to get to meet you.
Awesome. So, like we were talking about this just before we started, and I kind of wanted to frame this conversation up for the listeners. I have two daughters. One of them works with me. I have a partner in a global organization, a full team of really inspiring women. And every day, the importance of the challenge, or those everyday challenges that they face, came through in your book. And I intuitively feel like the system that we've built and we've created, this male kind of masculine workplace, just isn't working. And I think because I've got two young daughters who are moving into the workplace, when I saw your book, and I think of my partner Sinem and what she has endured in her corporate life, I just wanted to get on with you and kind of peel back the layers on this and go through your journey, about your book, what's going on in the workplace, what women are facing, and how are we going to change this? And that's kind of what I'm hoping to touch the tip of the iceberg on today.
Let's do it. I can't say I have all the answers, but I do have some good ones, and they're not mine. They're from other people. So, but
how did your journey start on this? You're a CEO of a company. Tell us about how you got to writing this book and what happened.
Oh, what a long, strange trip it's been. I guess I'll start at the most relevant point, which is When I was 29, I had been fired after working for a print magazine for 5 months. And with 5 months print experience and an MBA, I decided, screw it, I don't have kids. I'm just going to try to do some crazy idea that I have, which was launching a print magazine about sustainable business, about conscious business, purpose driven business, whatever terminology you want to use. And we crowdfunded it. And our first issue got picked up by every Whole Foods in the country.
Yeah.
And so I'm then 30 years old, the CEO of this nationally distributed print publication. This was in 2015. And it was a gorgeous journey for so many reasons. I did the full entrepreneur's journey of like getting investors. We brought in 21 angel investors, raised nearly $1 million, built a team, scaled the company. We sold the company. I stayed on as CEO under a wholly owned subsidiary brand. We had events and podcasts and the magazine and the whole thing. And what was so incredible about it was that I got to interview what I think
Yeah.
of as the most successful business leaders in the world, who are the people that have figured out how to be profitable and make the people whose lives who work for them better, make the environment better. They're not profiting at the cost of someone else. They are, in fact, improving people's lives. Like, I think that is success, right?
Yeah.
So I got to interview over 1,000 of these people and learn from them. And I am a total business geek and I love learning about this stuff. And so I just kept absorbing all of the information. I ended up the bad part of this, because there's always like dual sides of everything, as I was destroying myself in the process
Mhm.
of being an entrepreneur. And I just like lived and breathed my company. I, was putting off having kids. I wasn't sleeping. I was working nights and weekends. I wasn't seeing friends and family, and just burning myself out in this pursuit of accomplishment and wanting to be successful. And I really
Yeah.
believed in what I was doing and felt like I had something to prove and all sorts of things. And so ended up right around 2020, I resigned from my own company, which was so hard, but I had no gas left in the tank. And I resigned in February, and March 13th, 2020 was my last day. March 17th, we were in lockdown, and I had a 9-month-old son. So I went from full time CEO to full time
To
mom overnight. Um, and there's a couple years of there of deep and profound personal depression and anxiety and trying to figure out what I'm doing with my life. And this question came out of it, which became the genesis for the book, which is, can I return and have what I would consider to be a successful career and not destroy myself in the process? And so I thought about all the people that I had interviewed, and I would meet people who were thriving, who were happy, who were running multi-million-dollar companies or big name authors. And they actually seemed like they weren't depressed, anxious, chronically stressed, and burning out like most people are. So I was like, I'm going to study them, and I'm going to study the people that have built workplaces where the employees feel that way too. And what I thought was like, I hope I can get a little local publisher to publish this book, became a much bigger project. I signed on with the third largest publisher in the world, Hachette, and the book came out last month, and or this month, earlier
congratulations.
this month.
Yeah.
And yeah, that's the long story on how I got to the book. Happy to go into any more detail, but I feel like I spoke a lot there.
Yeah. Was there a sort of tipping point, some that you thought this needs to come out? This is something that just drove you over the edge. I've got to put this
Yeah.
in a book. And
I feel like like those moments where you realize like my personal problem is much bigger than me. It's
yeah.
like, yeah, I would like to come back and figure this out. But the more that I dug into the research and was talking to people, when we look at it, we're coming up on, I think, 4 billion people in the global workforce. And then when you look at the statistics around chronic stress, burnout, mental health issues, it is, to the tune of 60, 70, as high as 80% when it comes to some of these issues. And then when you take that out a step further and look at what the impact is of chronic stress, of burning out, of anxiety, of all these things on our mental and physical health and well-being, this isn't just a women's issue. This is a every human being issue. These degrade
Yeah.
and deteriorate our mental health, our physical health, our ability to grow and repair tissue. It compromises our immune system. Like, there's all of these ramifications, but we're not putting together, like, the way that I'm working is actually, in some cases, killing people. And where, there's this bottom line, profit at all cost mentality. And we've just normalized just totally overextending ourselves in the name of success. And it's a
Yeah.
tremendous pervasive issue. And there are solutions that make it better business. And so it's like one of those things where I was like, oh my God, if we could, even if, let's call it 10% of company leaders adopted these new playbook practices of the leaders who are actually building workplaces where people go to work and come home happier and
Yeah.
healthier and having their well-being supported as a result of going to work, not having their well-being destroyed as a result of going to work, that changes, like, and yes, this is like a huge statement and I feel very cliche, but it like changes the entire world.
Yeah.
Like, I can
It's like,
still remember my dad coming home so stressed, and it genuinely impacted the quality of my family life. Like,
and that circle tends to just kind of play out and play out. I mean, I remember my father working to whatever hours, and we don't think about our mothers as well and the things that they're going through. But there's this huge amount of stress, and as youngsters, we probably say, well, won't do that ourselves, but then we land up going into the same cycle. I can see I've done the same thing to my children. It just doesn't seem to ever end. And I think I look at what's going on, I'm more optimistic about change. And when I think about change for women, I look at the stats and I think things are getting better. My partner, Sinem, is less optimistic. She's more pessimistic and sort of saying it's not changing fast enough. And then I read your book and I feel like fundamentally the system is completely sort of broken or working against us. And the question she put to me while I was walking this morning, I'd just been reading, got up and went for a morning walk. She said, what's the solution? And is it small steps or is something more fundamental got to change here? And I know that's a big
yes.
question and loaded up, but short
Yes
answer
to
is
all of
yes.
that. Yes to all of that. I mean, I'll work from the macro to the micro. There is like
Good.
a fundamental, gigantic shift that, if in fact, if it happens, it changes the way that we work. And that is something I've been working on for the last 10 years, which is moving from shareholder supremacy,
Yeah.
profit at all cost, having a fiduciary responsibility to maximize profit for shareholders, which is like 1970 to now has become this fundamental belief that we have, and moving that towards stakeholder oriented business of maximizing the benefit to all of your company stakeholders. This is, stakeholder capitalism, stakeholder business, however you want to call it. But this is, I mean, we're seeing in 2019, the Business Roundtable, which is, I think it was like 181 of the largest CEOs in the world, largest CEOs of the largest companies in the world signed on to their new statement of a purpose of a corporation. And they in fact came out and said the purpose of business is to maximize the benefit for all stakeholders. And this was this like sea change moment where I was like, oh my,
Like,
because I'm a total business dork, like I was like running around, like holding up my phone and just freaking out, like, do you see this? Oh, like, everybody look at this, everything's going to change. And it didn't. Because,
big surprise.
like, it's like the perception we like the publicly traded markets and quarterly earnings reports and this idea of fiduciary responsibility, like until that changes at some of the largest companies in the world, it's going to be a hard mountain to climb. And to the micro agency part of things, like every single individual action counts. And that it doesn't matter if you are the CEO of a company or a mid-level manager or a brand new assistant coming in, every single person, when you walk into the workplace on a daily basis, you impact the people around you. And
Yeah.
people are like looking to you, even regardless of your title, to mirror behaviors. That's how we work as human species. We're very, very socially connected little cute creatures. And when we see people doing things in a better way, we want to do things in a better way. And so we all have micro agency and can change things every single day. I have a lot of hope. I get to hang out
Yeah.
with all these humans who I get to talk to, these people who are actually doing it a better way. But like this book, I was like, wait. Like there are solutions. It's like a win-win-win-win-win. Like there are solutions that make people's lives better, like the managers and the employees, makes it so the world is better on its own, but it's improving performance across the board for these companies. Like Tarani Syrups has grown 20% year over year for 33 years in a row as a result of employing these practices. So that's what gives me hope, is like the recipe is there. It's totally possible.
I mean, so is it just those small moves toward, when you think about the analogy of throwing the starfish back into the sea one at a time, or small moves, or is there something kind of more profound we should be looking at doing? Or does it come from small business? Is it, we talk about the change in quarterly earnings, and are all the small businesses trying to be too much like the big businesses, or should small, medium-sized businesses be where the change is being affected?
Oh my gosh. We're just going to go all over the place here. I love this. So I have so many different ideas on this, because there are models of small to mid-sized enterprises that are still not publicly traded and don't have extreme external investor pressure on them, where they can actually just like really live into their values. I mean, examples of this are like Eileen Fisher. She's been
Yeah.
around for 35 years or something. I think she took in like a teeny tiny bit of outside capital from friends and family at the very beginning, but then beyond that, she's grown organically for 35 years, so she can do whatever she wants. And with that, she was like, I am going to do every single possible thing I can to reshape business for good. We're going to be employee owned, profit distribution, sustainable apparel coalition. We're going to go through our supply chain and make sure there's like everyone's trained on human rights. We're going to build entire ecosystem in our community. We're going to repurpose our fashion. I mean, like, the amount of stuff that she has done because she has the freedom, because she hasn't taken on a tremendous amount of outside capital, she can do that. So that's like one example. Or Lisa Curtis, Cooley Foods. I think she just closed her Series B. She's raised, I think, $10 million at this point, so from VCs. And she was like, I am going to prove that this is a scalable model. That is what I am here to do, is to
Yeah.
show that the way that I am doing business is going to return profit to our employees, as well as the farmers whose lives we're impacting primarily in Africa, and will yield a return for investors. That is why I'm scaling so quickly, is because I want to show that this can scale. So so there's those, and publicly traded ones. It's like, that's where it's crunchy. Like benefit corporation, the legal status of companies changing to benefit corporations so that they don't feel
Yeah.
obligated to this fiduciary responsibility is like one little loophole that folks are using. And I've seen some promising stuff on the publicly traded market, but it's just, uh, I could talk about this forever, but
Yeah.
I'll wrap it up there.
Are the wheels moving forward, do you think? You're optimistic. The changes is happening, but not fast enough.
I mean, it's never happening fast enough. And I just hosted this dinner on Tuesday night in the Bay Area. We invited all these extraordinary women who are reshaping business, and there was a multiple conversation around the fact that people were feeling disenfranchised and maybe a little bit disappointed with the political climate in terms of making positive change on things that they cared about. And they were like, so business is the answer. And I was like,
Yeah.
uh-huh. Like, it's like the
It's
largest aggregator of human potential on the face of the planet. Like, there is no one in the world who business isn't
this is
impacting.
Yeah.
Like,
So that's where
so
the answer lies. Yeah.
yeah, like and like when people are seeing that and being like, I like, if business is the answer and there are solutions that we can deploy that are working, like this is a very obvious solution. So I feel hopeful in that regard. And I have a 3-year-old and a 6-year-old. Like, I will never feel like things are changing fast enough, because I want them to have such a better world than
Yeah. I'm
where we're at.
23-year-old, 18-year-old, and a 15-year-old, and I'm I don't want them to go through the same kind of meat grind scenario that the rest of us have gone through. And
Yes.
I sometimes I wonder. Yeah, I mean, I've just come back from holiday, taken 10 days off, and every time you go on holiday, you think, okay, I'm going to sort of do better. I'm going to structure things better. And this first week back has been a nightmare. And I read in your book about setting boundaries and respecting those boundaries, but it comes from me making sure that I respect my own boundaries before somebody else so respects them, and then kind of coaching that down to our children or to whoever else. When there's probably not enough of that being done, so they actually understand, like, what are boundaries? How do I make sure that my boundaries respect? I think you were talking about finishing at 3 p.m. in the afternoon, getting home, but you found yourself on email. And I see my partner up in the morning. First thing she does, checks email at 6 in the morning or whatever, and that just sends your day in the wrong direction right off the bat, particularly if you're dealing with a difficult kind of boss or personality at the time.
Hmm. Yeah, and one of the things that my children are so helpful for me is like they're a mirror of
Yeah,
like they're always absorbing whatever I'm doing, even if I they don't if I like I don't think that they are, but like I do not have my work email on my phone. I don't have Slack on my phone. I have nothing work related on my phone. And like there's
I love
occasionally
it.
like when I'm hosting an event on Tuesday and I'm like, oh, I have to like pull out my laptop in the middle of a coffee shop because I can't get to my work email. Like there's occasionally times that's annoying, but
So you keep that boundary. It's if I'm going to do it, I'm going to get on my laptop. I do
I
not
have
have work mail on my phone. That,
like
yeah,
I have the two-step authentication. So like if I even wanted to, I'd have to open my laptop to open it on my computer. But I have held it for 2.5 years. And yeah, my husband has his work email on his phone, and like my kids will ask, like, "What do you do? What are you looking at?" And
yeah,
my husband will be, I have a client who needs something right now, and they have never seen me on the phone working. I don't work when I'm with them at the park, when I'm, and so they're seeing that from me, and it's such a different,
that
like
kind of
even just
learning.
that one
Yeah,
boundary. Yeah, like they're seeing that like it's the phone is not for work with me, and that is they're learning a new way to be, which I never thought I would be like
yeah,
worried about my kids using cell phones because they're working too much. But when you have access to it, it's like having junk food in the house. Like if it's there, you'll touch it. Like
yes,
if the work email's on my phone, I will open it at 6 o'clock in the morning when I wake up. But now I don't.
yeah.
I start at 9 when I look at my computer. Like,
I
uh,
mean, I really love that analogy you used to think of the wind person with the arms kind of waving and going everywhere, and how you talked about values as sandbags. I just that was such a great description of how I think so many kind of people feel. But you you talked about values, and you talked about values, um, so the link to burnout. And I think this is such an important thing that we have to understand what our values are. And I think you sort of talked about some of your values in the book, and we have to align those with the workplace. But I never really thought about them in terms of burnout before. And I'm curious about your kind of thinking about that, because I thought this win person analogy was brilliant, and values anchoring you as the sandbags. But then kind of you ultimately, I mean, I imagine this win person eventually is going to start tearing up, even if the values are kind of holding them down. How are you thinking about values and alignment in the workplace? Because I really think that's critical.
yeah, there's two elements that I mean, and this is not my research. This was just research I think came out of UC Davis, but looking at the 6 core primary causes of burnout, and one of
Yeah,
them is feeling out of alignment with your values. And when you look at the key causes of burnout, all of them are very systemic. They're really like deeper workplace cultural issues rather than like this quick fix. Like you need to just like take another day off or get a spa day. Like being out of alignment with your values, like
there's a big
that's not
problem,
gonna,
right?
yeah, like that's not gonna be fixed by going to the spa.
Yeah,
Like having a lack of community and feeling isolated, like these are like very significant issues and that are causing burnout. And so that's one of the key causes of burnout. And so many of us are doing work because we have been told from a young age of like the reason that we have a job is to make money and to make the most money humanly possible and to accomplish the most and have the most amount of achievement. And like I grew up like in a place where I've been making my own way in the world since I was 18. So like
Yeah.
I have bussed tables and had a job because I was paycheck to paycheck, and that was how I made rent to get through college. Like that is a place. And when you get past that point of survival of like, I'm making a paycheck because this is what I need to put dinner on the table for myself or a roof over my head, then as we increase, it's just like we want the highest paying job. We want more money. Everything is about stability and money. And very little do we ever talk about our success in our career being oriented around what we're engaged and happy and passionate about, or like what impact do we want to make, or what enables us to have the best quality of life, or like all of the most important things that
Yeah.
help us flourish as human beings. We don't center those with our career choices. And then we're wondering why we're
Why we
burning out
burnt
and
out more.
depressed
Yeah.
and anxious. So yeah, that has been, it's such, I mean, I like came out of the womb as a high achiever, like just it was baked into my DNA to want all of the achievement and the extrinsic motivation. In the last few years, I have just like, I have to constantly pull myself back and come back to my values and make decisions in alignment with my values, not in alignment with like external forces.
I mean, just talking about high achievement for a moment, one of the I think the metrics that just jumped out at me in the book was, and I might get this slightly wrong, but I think 70% of high achieving women are kind of, when it comes to performance reviews or review time or whatever, feel that they are underrated. And I think the equivalent on the men's side was 2% or something. I mean, it was just like,
Yeah,
and I was like,
yeah.
I can't believe this. I see it though. I mean, I see it with my partner where she goes through these reviews and walks out and has talked about building teams and putting teams first and her people and growing and values and all those kind of things. But she seems to get penalized for it. And it was just, wow.
I think it's 70% of high achieving women receive negative feedback about their personalities based and compared to 2% of high achieving men. And that was like
That's,
like just, I mean, and this is where, I mean, this can be a very hopeful thing or a very not hopeful thing, but this is what I've been choosing to focus on as a woman is yes, women are ascending to the highest levels of leadership for the first time ever in the history of business. And that does not mean that we're having the same experience as men. Like every single statistic and every single marker of gender equality
yeah,
continues to demonstrate that we are having a vastly different experience in the workplace, including 9 out of 10 people worldwide still holding fundamental gender biases. So women in the workplace, you're just contending with a ton more hurdles and challenges to overcome than men are. And you're doing it within a system, a harmful system that is harming everyone. Yep. Business
yeah,
on its face is 60% of people are stressed. We have 85 people per percent of people are burning out. It's doing this to everyone. And then women have all these additional, you know, everything from fundamental gender bias and sexual harassment to, the very, just like the teeny little day-to-day things that, being mistaken for someone junior, having people doubt your work, people asking you to get coffee. I cannot tell you how many times people have asked me if I'm someone's assistant when I'm
yeah.
at an event where I'm a keynote speaker. Like it's just like these little things that continue to show you that it's still not equal. And that can be a very frustrating experience. And it can also be a very like liberating and powerful experience when you're like, I'm actually succeeding within the system with all of this garbage in front of me. I'm still doing wonderfully. Like I should be proud of myself. So I feel like that has been a perspective that I keep coming back to is like, you are
I
doing
think
this against all the odds.
I know you had a quote in your book that was something along the lines of a woman who's even, I think, marginally productive member of society in the face of all of this is a warrior. And I was like, that's, I mean,
Yeah. I got a little hyped up writing the book, you know.
I thought, I thought it was a great description, but I mean, I think of my daughters, I think of a partner, I think, you are warriors. But what seems to happen is that I guess women tend to try and kind of fit into this masculine male mold, and it just seems to perpetuate the situation. And sometimes you find that both men and women are, well, women are, it feels like a sort of cutting each other down more than the other way around. But this, it just seems to sort of perpetuate itself. So the way to deal with this environment is to kind of fit in, box yourself into this, and just do what you need to do to survive in it, but following the masculine kind of leaning toward the masculine side of things and not changing the workplace. I'm really curious again about how you're thinking about how we begin solving this.
Mm. Yeah, this is one where I get this so many people are like, the women are sometimes worse than the men. And I'm like, yes. And there's a very clear reason. So like, let's go back to
Yeah,
understanding the root cause of that, which is when we look at business, it's been around for 3,000 plus ish years, depending on what you want to call the beginning of business. 5,000 if we're talking about the invention of currency. It is only in the last 50 years that women have been, quote, let into the business world out of thousands of this being designed. And again, this is like not a judgment. This is a factual state of the societies of the last 10,000 years. Within the last 10,000 years or so, most societies on the face of the planet have been under some sort of patriarchal lens that
yeah,
men are superior to women. So this comes back to the point of this is why women aren't allowed to work and all the things, and they're coming into the workplace starting in the 1970s or so. And they're 100% the minority population coming into a dominant culture. And the best example we have of this is immigration. When you are an immigrant and you go to a new country, you feel like you have to adopt the cultural
mm,
norms, speak the
yeah,
language, like learn the customs and the culture in order to be accepted and to fit in and have some sense of belonging, which is one of our core human needs. And so you adopt it. And so that's what women had to do to have any chance of succeeding in this incredibly male dominated system in which many times they were the first woman in their office, the first woman in their role, the first woman who was a manager. Like the stories that I hear from women who are like 20 and 30 years my senior, I still like, I can't even believe. And not only do you have to adopt all these cultural customs, the better you do so, the more you can show them that you can hang with them, the more successful you tend to be. And so this is what I call the over assimilation cycle, where like you want to see toxic masculinity? Like I'll throw a stapler at an employee's head. Like, like you see these women that are going like just doing egregious behavior, but that is what they have learned or what
yeah,
they believe they have to do to survive and to climb to the highest echelons in a still entirely male dominated business leadership ecosystem. And so on the day to day, I just had this like fabulous example of this. I was doing an employee resource group with the women at Coach and Kate Spade in New York. And one of the younger women there was like, I feel like when I'm in a meeting, like I sometimes I'll say something and it just goes completely ignored. And so I feel like I just like shouldn't even say anything anymore. And I was like, listen, like what we need to focus on is modeling, not mirroring. Like mirroring other people's behavior as like looking at whatever around you is doing and like mirroring what they're doing to try to be accepted. Modeling is showing up as your highest self, showing up as the type of employee that is in the type of workplace that you want to create. And like no matter, even if your voice is ignored, you still speak your truth and offer it. You
yeah,
still show up grounded and present and vulnerable and appreciative and like however you really want to be, because I promise you, someone in that room will watch what you are doing and find inspiration. Like, even if they don't even tell you, like, but the more we can model healthy workplace behavior, like it starts with the individual. And the more that you see other people doing it, and this is like where I'm like Oh, men, this is where we need you. Because, like, when a man shows up and is like compassionate or vulnerable or like deeply listens and models those incredibly effective leadership traits and shows that it's great for any leader to be able to do them, like that's where huge change starts to happen. And there are men that are like Chip Conley is like one
Yeah.
of my favorite male leaders of all time. Like he just blows my mind. And so these are the most effective leadership traits across the board is this healthy blend of masculine and feminine. And the more that all of us are leaning into them, the more effective leaders will be, but the healthier workplaces we're also creating. Again, very long answer. Little.
But I love that. I think what you're saying there is that, I mean, just kind of peeing what you're saying is that to make this change happen, both men and women, we need to lean into both that feminine, that masculine side. We need to find some kind of sort of tension or balance between the two, and it's by modeling that that we're going to start to affect the change that we're talking about.
And the more that you like practice it, the more you see like, oh, this actually works. Like,
yeah.
uh,
I mean,
just taking one step into it is the first start.
I guess as a leader these days, there's so many things going on, and you you're sort of, I think, thinking about how do I create a business that has got a softer side to it, that has a clear sense of purpose, that has values, that I'm hiring to those values and trying to create something like that has that perhaps more feminine side. Uh, there's a more masculine side to business as well, but I feel like we kind of keep getting pulled back toward the more masculine side. And maybe I'm not getting this right, but it feels like when times get tough or we're having to navigate difficulty, we get pulled back again to the kind of harder numbers driven execution type stuff, and we tend to forget the importance of kind of how purpose and values are going to help us actually navigate through those difficult times, and how much we need that.
Yeah.
um yeah.
I mean,
I,
I mean, and this is like true of all of us as humans, when times get tough, like how you show up is actually what your character is. And
yeah.
so I feel like we just had this conversation with the women's ERG group. We had this, pretty solid backlash against DEI and ERGs and all of the stuff happening within workplace culture. And a ton of organizations have just cut all of those programs. The ones that didn't, those are the ones that are actually doing the work. And so like now is the time to look at which companies are still walking the talk, because like those are the actual ones that it's not just window dressing and they're
That's
not
where it's
just like,
genuine. Yeah.
yeah, like when things get hard, what do you
Yeah,
stand for?
that's right. I mean, I was just sort of thinking about that as well in terms of the leader of those companies, and as somebody who leads a business myself, what are the kind of things that, as men particularly, we need to be thinking about? I mean, we talked about modeling, and you used a fantastic example there, but as a person leading a company and growing a business, what are the kind of things that I need to be aware of as a leader in making this, being part of this transformation?
Mm. I mean, I think the thing that I always kind of come back to is like, just like come back to the basics of fundamental humanity. Like,
Yeah.
it's like, see, it feels like it's so simple, but I mean, like the practices that I found across the board that were game changing at organizations in terms of building exceptional workplace culture were simple things like individual one on one check ins. Like, how often are you doing them? Are you expressing regular appreciation? Are you giving people feedback, in a very constructive and
Yeah.
helpful way? Is the gratitude that you're giving to people, is it specific? Is it genuine? um, Checking in with people like at the beginning of meetings. The people from the deliberately developmental organizations, DDO, the researchers around that, they found that the common thing that every single manager at these high performing companies did is they checked in with everyone at the beginning of the meetings. Like, how are you really? Like, as a human being, how are you today? Just
Yeah.
take 5 minutes to check in with people. So it's just coming back to the basics: listening, communication,
It's those
appreciation.
fundamental things that we we all know that we should be doing, but it's actually kind of making sure that we are in fact doing them. Yeah, it's I think really thinking about it. I mean, doing those fundamental things, you start to see the difference anyway. So it is going back and just doing them, and yeah,
And it also just feels better, like for you as a leader. I don't think most people want to be callous assholes. I like I think most of us would prefer a situation where we feel connected with the people that we're working with, and we feel like they appreciate us. Like, we're
yeah.
social
And
creatures.
you had a term I think you used between two types of leadership styles and authentic leadership and hang on,
Assimilated.
yeah, that was really interesting as well. And maybe if you kind of tell us a little bit about how you're thinking about that as well.
Yeah, that I mean, a lot of that is the like coming in and trying to adopt what everyone else is doing. That's assimilated leadership. And it's the book that just like blew my mind on this. I was looking around in my office for it, but The Myth of Normal by
Okay,
Gabor Mate. He talks about how we have two fundamental core human needs: one, belonging; two, expressing our individual authenticity. And when we go into a workplace, we most often want to feel like we belong. And so we act like everyone else around us. We try to do all the things. And so we assimilate into what everyone else is doing because we want to belong, because we have that core human need and we feel like our
yeah,
career depends on that. The expressing our individual authenticity gets completely subsumed. And then that's, we feel like we can't be authentic in the workplace. But then again, all the research bears out, the more authentic you are, the more you really bring your full self to the table, the happier you are and the more effective of a leader you are. So,
yeah,
uh, yeah,
yeah. So, and it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, where kind of trying to assimilate into that environment is where into that masculine type of environment is where the problem really is. You've got to be authentic. You've got to stick to your values. Be authentic. Um, I suppose if there's one thing that you'd want every listener to take away and put into action tomorrow, like what would that be? You know, whether they're a leader, an employee, a parent, partner, what's something that can help us move this forward?
the thing that stuck with me when I was looking at this research was there's two stats. One was that 70% of people now say that their manager or leader has as much or more of an impact on their mental health as their spouse does.
Wow,
And
good.
this is just one of those things where, like, if you are a team lead, if you're a manager, if you're a leader, if like all whatever position you have, if you have someone who is reporting to you, you impact their life potentially as much or more than their spouse does. Like, how you show up matters in such a
Yeah,
significant way. And it's not like, yes, there are KPIs and like performance metrics and all the things that we have to do. And like the quality of your being is what leaders should be focusing on the most. And so that is the one thing that gets like, I was like, oh, that just like stirred something in my heart to want to be better at the work that I'm doing. And there's also research that came out that it was saying that our weak ties, which they classified as things like our relationships with our coworkers, are just as important to our mental health as our strong ties, our relationships with our family and friends. Again, it doesn't even matter if you're a leader. The way that you show up every single day, the connections that you have, the way you treat your coworkers, every single thing that you are doing at work matters to the people. You are impacting the people around you. And so there's like the, oh my God, that's a lot of responsibility. Or you can look at it the other way, which is like
yeah,
all of us have agency to make our lives feel better, to make other people's lives better. Like the way that you show up, it, it
yeah. It makes me
matters.
think. Yeah, it makes me think about. I had Zach Mercurio on the show, who's just written the book Mattering, and before that was doing. I can't remember the previous book, but making sure that people feel cared about, that they feel like they matter in the workplace, and how important that is. So whether you're a leader, whether you're a peer, just making people feel that they matter.
I like,
Um,
I don't think this got into the book. I like don't even remember. I'm like, what did I write in there? I don't know. But this, this was, I'll like leave with like the one thing I did that I think was the most like impactful thing as a leader with my team is whenever I would feel inspired, and it was usually, I'd say every, maybe 3 months, we had an all team meeting every Friday and on Zoom. And whenever it just like came to me and I was like, you want to know what? Today feels like an appreciation day. I would spend, hour or two writing down I would write down each person on my team's name. And then I would go back and like look at the last 3 months and look at like things that they accomplished, work that they did that I appreciated, like very granular, specific feedback on things that they did on like all. And then the entire Zoom meeting, 60 minutes, I would spend going person by person as the CEO, like, see ya. Let's talk
okay.
about this and this and this and this. And like, we had the strongest workplace culture that I could have ever imagined. And the gratitude days was one of the things that I was like, I made
And
that up. And I think it was actually one of the times I didn't make a mistake as a CEO.
was just taking the time again, like that small thing of sitting down every 3 months and thinking about those gratitude kind of points, and then having those conversations with people, and just they feel
And I
mad.
did it
Like
in
they
front
know.
of
Yeah.
everybody. I did like, we had a small team, but like, there'd be 9 people on the Zoom call and I'd be like, we're throwing the agenda out today. It's a gratitude day. I'm
Yeah.
starting with Rachel,
I
and I do
love
it in
it.
front of everybody. And
Yeah.
it's people want to feel like they're seen and heard and like they matter.
Yeah. Seen, heard, and that matter. One of the reasons I started this podcast was because I wanted to see a change, or I want to see a change in the workplace. And I think a lot of business owners who go out there and start a business start it because they're looking for freedom. But I think freedom means a lot of things to different people. And I'm interested in what you think about when you think about freedom in the entrepreneurial context, but in life as well. Um,
Oh my gosh. This is a big one. When you look at Daniel Pink and, 3 primary intrinsic motivators as humans, one of them is autonomy. And when I think about freedom, I think about having full autonomy over my quality of life.
yeah.
And I mean, I think a lot of entrepreneurs I've talked to, it's not about selling the business and sailing off on your diamond encrusted super yacht. It's about, I can stop every day at 3 and go hang out with my family, and I
And have
can
those
take a
boundaries.
month off, and like the autonomy to focus on the things in your life that matter.
Yeah.
That is freedom to me. And that is why I don't think I will ever be employable for the rest of my life. I make enough money doing what I do, but I don't need to make any more, and I have freedom to do and focus on the things that I love. So
I love it. Love it. Meghan, thank you so much for taking the time out today and just sharing. We'll put all the notes for the book in. I've thoroughly enjoyed reading it, and I'm going to go back and reread it.
yay.
I'm hoping that Amazon has delivered my copy. I'm in Europe, and I believe it's come from Germany somewhere, or whatever. But I'm going to go and reread the book. But I'm so grateful for you coming on and spending some time with me.
Oh, this is a pleasure. I'm so glad that you're doing the work you're doing, and thanks for reading the book.
Thanks, Meghan. Hey, thanks for listening to this episode of The Freedom Experience. If this episode hit a nerve or sparked something in you, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. Leave us a review on whatever platform you're listening on. Share it with somebody that you care about. It really helps us to get in front of more purpose-driven leaders and make sure that these conversations reach the right people. If you want to learn more about growing a values-based business and building the next generation of leaders, head over to smallgiants.org. You'll find tools, workshops, and a community of people building businesses that put people first. And if Meghan's message resonated with you, grab a copy of her book, This Isn't Working. It's an honest, eye-opening, and it's full of practical wisdom we need more of in the workplace. That's it from me. See you next time.